as an entire club and an entire league to get an idea of what the league was going to look like, the new rules were going to look like, the teams were going to look like, how useful they would be for each club. And I think, again, this year we've had a great preseason. Started out with the first team. It allowed a lot of the guys to be in for a significant amount of time, helping them prepare, but also preparing these guys for what's coming next week. So overall, very happy and excited with some of the additions that we've made, obviously some of the returning players and what they've done over the last 8 weeks.
Thank you for that. We'll go and start with questions. We'll start with Dustin. Dustin, go ahead.
Hey, Kenny.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Hey, you guys obviously losing some players up to the first team, it seems, which is, the goal of what you're doing. But can you just talk a little bit about kind of filling in those the production of guys like Mikel, Palomino, Brooklyn, Majib, and those guys?
Yeah, that's a great question, because ultimately I'm glad we start with this, because that was the goal last year, was to allow the club to develop players that could help the first team. And, we saw that with a lot of guys, and some answers were made from a club standpoint on other players. But, you saw the announcement we've made. We've got a couple other players coming in. We brought Omar Gray in from Washington, who's an outside back, outstanding young man, outstanding player. There's a couple of players that have yet to be announced that I think everybody will be very excited about. Obviously, there's rumors on social media and things like that. But every year we're trying to add depth in positions that will fight not only for the minutes and the results with the second team, but that will excite the first team. And we can look forward to the future of saying, okay, this guy, if we can do as a Dynamo 2 staff what we want with this player, then he's in real consideration of being a first team player.
And you've coached Juan Castilla now for a little bit. We obviously saw his breakout kind of at the U20s for Colombia. Can you just talk a little bit about just Juan and his development and what you see for him this season?
Yeah, it's funny because I think you watch Juan with Colombia and what he had to do to actually get into that team, to play with that team, to get results with that team, to qualify for the World Cup with that team. I couldn't be more proud. And that's what I said to him as that whole event was going on was, when he got back, I have nothing but pride for what he was able to do. And he's gone again. Obviously they're in another camp preparing. And I just think it's fantastic. It shows the work ethic that he's had and the production that now he's having with Colombia, that he's an integral part of a World Cup qualifying team.
Thanks, Kenny.
No problem.
Next, we'll go with Victor. Go ahead.
Hey, Kenny. I did want to ask you about the situation with Palomino. What can you tell us about, because this is a player you coached since the youth rank in the academy. What was your evaluation of him, and what was the decision to, have him leave the club?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Victor. For me, that's kind of out of my scope of decision making. Last year, my job was, when he was with us, to get as much as we could out of him, and I thought we did. You can look at his production last year. Past that point, I think moving into this year with the contracts and the situation there, that was kind of out of my scope of discussion. I wasn't in those discussions. But what I'm happy about is he's found a home and he's in a position where he's performing. And I think he has a really, really good career ahead of him.
Hey guys, we've got time for about 2 more.
Okay. You talked about the schedule there a little bit, kind of goes in with the team this week. When you saw Austin FC2 as the first game for this season, can you give us your thought about starting with that matchup?
Yeah, well, look, what a great opportunity now to have all of the teams in the league, minus DC. And we play Austin 3 times and we play Dallas 3 times. Again, what are we trying to get out of these matches? Like, what are we trying to put these players in? And we're trying to put them in really high pressure situations where results matter. And I think this is great to go to Austin, the first game of the season. Brett Utley, who's the head coach there, is a good friend of mine. I think it's going to be a battle. And again, our goal is to improve on what we did last year. I think we had a very successful season last year from a standpoint of player production, player identification, bringing the right types of players in. The results is a byproduct of that. And we really pushed over the last month to be ready to start the season like we started the season last year. It's going to be challenging because you've got both LA teams in now, you've got Austin in now. You've got all these different groups that maybe we didn't see last year. So there's going to be even more parity between the league. But again, for us, yes, bring them on. Let's go. Let's play these difficult games. Let's put these guys in these situations. And I hope that we can continue to provide an environment. And a lot of you on this call were people that came to our games, create the same environment at Aviva that we did last year, if not even better.
Thanks, Kenny.
Thank you.
Hey, Manuel, go ahead.
Hey, Kenny, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I know last year there was always implement rule changes. Just my quick question for you: what rule or what change this year are you looking forward to see how the league plays, or even how your team performs this season?
Look, I think everybody has an opinion about some of the crazy rules that are put in place. And I go back to the GA Cup probably 5 years ago, where it was the first iteration of VAR. And I remember how everybody was freaking out, like, how's it going to work and things like that. I do think there'll be a learning curve, not only for the players and the staff, but for the referees. The 10 seconds to get off the field, I get the idea about it, but we were laughing today, actually, because we've started to train some of these things. How funny it'll be when a guy forgets and he ends up like diving off the field, trying to get off within 10 seconds, right? Because again, it's new for everybody. So, I think the penalty rule is still a great opportunity to put the players under pressure. I think the 3 minutes off the field for an injury, again, it's an attempt to speed the game up and not waste time. The substitution rule, I understand it will be interesting. But no, I think at the end of the day, these are all things that the players and the staff have to be thinking about, and it's good repetitions to keep us engaged in all of it. So no, I'm excited. I think I'm probably way less stressed out about it than the referees need to be, because I'm sure they're sitting here going, okay, we've got to get this right.
We'll close with Sam. Sam, you got one, go ahead.
Hi, Kenny.
Hey.
Yeah, this is Sam. Question I want to ask you real quick before we looking at last year campaign and how the team campaign ended last season. What lessons did you take from last year campaign heading into this current season?
Okay, great question. Number one, we were 1 point away from hosting a playoff game. We've seen the new rules and how that will really impact the playoffs, where you get to choose your opponent. We were 1 point. Excuse me. We were 1 point away. That 1 point. There are moments in the season that I look back and think, okay, in the last 10 minutes we conceded a goal and we ended up with a draw. We were in Portland. We were up 1-0 and we ended up losing. We had chances to win a game in Vancouver, ended up going to penalties. All of these small things, they impact over the longevity of a season, and you don't know until it ends. But we put an emphasis on the first 15 minutes of every game. Last year, our goal for every game was to try and score in the first 20 minutes, and we were pretty successful with that. So now we've adapted that, and we've talked about, okay, first 20 minutes of the game, the last 20 minutes of the game, how many games do we need to either score a goal or not concede a goal? So those are some small tweaks, managing the games, because as we have young players, sometimes the management of the game, the professionalism, they just don't have experience in it. And I think we went through some things last year that we were still successful, but we can grow and the players can grow. And I think these little growth moments, they impact their career in the long run, where if you're away in the MLS at any game, I don't care where you are, and you're up 1-0 in the last 10 minutes, how do you see the game out? What types of things are you doing to make sure that you end that game with 3 points, not 1 point or 0? So that's one of the biggest keys to us is the game management side of things.
All right, if I let you go, the last one.
Guys, we're gonna close with this one. We've got to get to a meeting. We'll be back with Ben Olsen.
All right, thank you very much.